5, we have a motion regarding the minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes from last month.
Second.
Okay, is that to include the budget committee meeting as well? Or
Sure.
do you wanna okay. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for discussion.
I'll forgive you.
Go too late now.
It's armchair mayor, not armchair quarterback.
That's right. Backseat driver, backseat Mary. Okay. So on to public hearings or presentations. We have Mr. McDowell, I think is going to speak about the state revenue sharing.
I am.
Question?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is we're required by state law to have a public hearing. So this is our second public hearing for the proposed use of state revenue sharing. So anyone wishing to take the podium and talk about that, they're more than welcome to do so now. The city council has used that money over the years for public safety, and that goes towards helping with street lighting. The city pays over $54,000 a year in street lighting, and the city gets just over $17,000 for state revenue sharing. So if anybody would like to propose a different use, now is the time to speak for this fiscal year.
Do we need a motion to?
Nope, that's just the hearing. You just close the hearing and
Close
close
the
the
hearing?
hearing. Sure.
And now open the public hearing regarding the budget for the 2022-2023 year. If anyone has comments.
I will give a quick overview of Council President Hanson, if I may. I'm just trying to find it here in my report. It's a good cheat sheet, and of course, so that would be page 13. Thank you, John. Page 13. I selected it and it didn't pop up here. Love it. It says it's on the page. Well, I can't do it by memory, but I'll try. I can do it by memory. I just scroll down all the way to the wrong one. You got a real hard copy real quick?
Yeah, here's the bullet
I
point.
like to have it up here on the screen so everyone
Yeah,
can
you
see
probably
it.
can.
Oh, here we go, here we go, here we go. Okay. All right, thank you for your help there. Okay, so the Budget Committee met twice to consider the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And where we were at with the committee recommended to the City Council was to approve the full permanent tax rate of 6.9597 per thousand. They've approved the levy amount needed to satisfy the wastewater bond debt in the amount of $217,984. The Budget Committee is recommending a 7% utility rate increase for the upcoming fiscal year. They've approved the historic use of state revenue sharing, which was the street lights that I just discussed. And then they approved and recommended the continued use of all designated funds and line items contained in this fiscal year 2022-2023 budget document. And finally, they approved the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and recommended the same to council. So basically where we're at with that, council, is the public hearing is really done on that. It will be an agenda item for next council where we'll also have the floor open, but it will be time at next meeting to officially approve the budget.
Any questions? All right, Linda McCormick, you're ready. If you could, I don't know if we generally do this for the presentation, but if you could state your name. just so
Sure.
everybody knows.
Linda McCormick, and you need my address or just, okay. I'm chairman of the Stand By Me Day, and I thought it would be good to let you guys all know what we've got planned. So I dropped off one of our little schedules that we have so far. Things can always change, but I wanted you to have a heads up of what we're planning with it landing on a Saturday. We're going to turn this into a big event similar to the 2016 30th anniversary, not quite as, because we're not doing 30th anniversary, but so it's kind of a fun thing. Like I've got the cruise in, we've got some food vendors coming, some trucks, like probably 2 or 3. We're serving Verno burgers, and in the movie, they got hamburger instead of hot dogs for the campfire, so they had to squish the hamburger so it looked like a hot dog. And so Natalie is going to be making hamburgers in the shape of a hot dog, and we call them Verno burgers.
I love it.
And we'll have blueberry pie. We've got a geocache challenge, so a lot of people are into geocaching. That'll be all around town. And in fact, we're looking for someone who might have a pond that would be easy for some of these folks, because they use GPS to look for locations. And with the leech thing, we could play a little funny on that. Kids games. The guided tours are always a big deal. We have a team of people, Jeff's one of them, that's going to give tours around where all the scenes were filmed. Souvenirs, photo ops. We've got a group of singers coming up, mostly from Eugene, that'll be roaming the streets singing songs from the movie. Fan forum will be on stage. I don't know yet who's coming that was in the cast or crew, but whoever we get. It's really fun, especially to learn behind the scenes. One year we had the train engineer that was driving the train on the trestle, and to hear him talk about what it was like to not see the kids in front of him was fascinating. Costume contest, the folks come dressed up half the time anyway. Working on the pie eating contest. We've got a live band, the Uncaged Locals is gonna play for us. And then later we'll have a sock hop in the Pavilion Dance Hall. And then we've got one of our volunteers, committee members, her grandsons, I guess, but they're cousins, so they're called Just Cuz. And they're going to sing in front of the movie screen that night, and then we'll show the movie in the park. And so I don't know if you have questions for us. Just wanted you to make sure you knew that you've got this planned.
Just out of curiosity, do you know historically what roughly the largest attendance we've had for standby days?
That would have been in 2016 for the 30th.
30th anniversary.
And I'm thinking it was like 3,000 to 4,000, something like that. It was crazy, yeah, but the fans loved it so much, and it was so hot, yeah. I'm figuring probably maybe 1,000 to 2,000, don't know. With travel, it's hard to tell how many people, because we always get people that fly in from foreign countries. They come to this crazy thing and across the United States, so.
Well, thanks for all your hard work, Linda.
Yeah, you have to see those faces. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Moving on to department reports, we have a representative from the Sheriff's Department or Sheriff's Office. If you can go ahead.
That was a good report.
That was
Perfect
great.
I was gonna apologize for being late.
Just for everybody's benefit, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Okay, Steve Frambies, I'm a sergeant with the Lynn County Sheriff's Office. So, doing the monthly report. I'm gonna skim over this pretty quick because I got a guest speaker, but please ask me any questions before we move on, okay? As you'll see, it's hard to explain, super proud of our guys for how motivated they've been lately. We've been pretty short-staffed, and a couple of new laws and stuff passing. It just continues to decrease morale a bunch. But you'll see, I mean, some of the traffic numbers are honestly some of the best I've ever seen in a contract city, and just very proactive with 40 citations and 16 arrests. They were doing a lot of work. One notable traffic stop. So I'm looking down, reading that notes here. Deputy Newman again stopped a car for a traffic violation, minor traffic violation. Driver and passenger ended up having warrants. So that got us somewhat into the car. We ended up recovering 3 guns. One was stolen, and one had a suppressor on it. We also found some narcotics off that too. That was off a traffic violation. All that happened. 2 arrests, 3 guns, 1 stolen. So it just kind of goes to show, we talked about last meeting when they're taking away like lighting violations. We can turn something huge from something very small. And then another one I thought was, I haven't seen something like this before. We made an arrest on it for telephonic harassment. One female received a call from a male 70 times in an hour. So he got a trip to jail for telephonic harassment, which you don't see very often, but it's out there. Any questions about the report? None at all?
The kids are behaving, it looks like, the juveniles.
Juveniles?
So it looks like they're all behaving.
That means parents are doing a good job. So with me tonight, I brought, he's a lieutenant with the sheriff's office. He runs animal control. His name's Steve Looney. He used to be my lieutenant. So I asked him to come here. We're getting nice weather. We're getting more dog barking complaints, dogs running at large and whatnot. So I asked him just to come and talk for a couple minutes about issues they see and any questions you guys might have. So he's coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm Lieutenant Looney. I work at the Sheriff's Office, as he said. He just wanted me to come briefly talk about kind of what we do, who we are. You've seen us around, I think, or most people around here have. We took over for the county under animal control stuff in 2014, so we've been there about 8 years or so, taking it over. It came under the umbrella of the Sheriff's Office. And we handle pretty much anything animal related, but mostly it's a lot of dog stuff. Dog running at large, dog is a public nuisance, barking dog, or no license. Those are our big three. We talk a little bit about what that is for like dog running at large. Anytime that a dog is off your property or off the property of the owner that is not contained by a physical control device, so a leash of some sort, it is considered running at large. Even if your dog has what they say near perfect recall, if it doesn't have a physical control device, according to the state of Oregon, it's considered running at large. As far as dog licensing, which we obviously have a lot of as well, people not licensing their dogs. In the state of Oregon, any dog that is over 6 months of age or had its first rabies shot must be licensed in the county that it resides. So for us, that we do all the licensing. So that's in Albany at the animal control building. There is where you do the licensing. The other is basically barking dog, or dog is a public nuisance, or the barking complaint. We talked with the judge extensively about kind of what she is looking for to meet those requirements. And for the last several years, it has been determined that anytime between 8 and 10 minutes of continuous barking is considered a nuisance. Now, to prove that, we need some type of audio and video recording. Unfortunately, there's been neighbor disputes where the dog was never barking, but they said it was, and that kind of thing happened. So to alleviate that, she wants to make sure that there's some type of audio and video evidence of unprovoked barking. So if somebody's just in their backyard and the dog's barking, that's considered unprovoked. If they're knocking on the fence or they're doing something to cause that, that's different. We would handle that a different way. But we need about 8 to 10 minutes of continuous barking for that to be considered a nuisance. Now, sometimes the dog will only bark for 15, 20 seconds, but they'll do that 30 times in an hour. When we talked to the judge about that, she agreed that could also be considered nuisance barking. It just has to be an excessive amount of times, what a general populace would consider an excessive amount of time. There's not a set number, but if you have a dog barking 15, 20, 30 seconds, but it's doing that, and then it take a 10-second break, then 30 seconds, and 10, if it's continuous throughout the day, as long as we have audio and video of that, we can still consider that a nuisance barking complaint. Most of the stuff in the cities, especially here, is barking, running at large, and no license. Usually we catch the no license because we go to the barking dog complaint, find out the dog's not licensed, and then we address that as well. A lot of times with licensing, we'll give a warning first, give them an ample opportunity to come and get that dog licensed. With barking, it's a little bit more, we already have a complainant, so usually that will end up in some type of citation or sometimes a warning depending on what the neighbor wants.
Can I ask you with the licensing I know the rabies is a couple years. So is the license?
No.
Okay.
In Lynn County, unfortunately the state doesn't have it regulated. Every county can do it differently. It just has to be licensed. So the prices are different, the times are different. In Lynn County, we only offer annual licenses.
Okay.
And so the rabies, usually if it's the second rabies shot the dog has got, it's good for 3 years. But the license still has to be renewed every year.
Okay.
And once it's licensed, we send renewals in the mail. It can be done by mail. You don't have to show anything or bring the dog in or anything. We also have online started a couple years ago or so you can do it online or any other way, or come in or mail or any way you want to.
Okay.
But
yeah.
yes, it doesn't always match with the 3-year raise, it's
Right,
every
because
year.
I messed up like that. I
Yeah.
thought it was 3 years.
Yep, and a lot of people do, and a lot of times, like for us, we don't penalize people harshly for that. It's a $5 late fee.
Yeah,
If it's 2 years late, it's a $5 late fee. You know, it
Okay.
doesn't matter how long it is. Once you get it back, to get it back in compliance, we only charge $5.
Yeah.
And that's just to get the paperwork there, back to the person.
and it's not expensive, I don't think,
No,
the
it's
license, considering what you get.
Oh yeah,
you know.
$15 if the dog is spay or neutered, $25 if the dog is not spay or neutered. Because
Right.
there's an
Yeah.
incentive for, you know, having your
Encouraged
dog, yeah, it's
spay.
very much encouraged to have your dog spayed and neutered because we have an overpopulation of animals in the
Yes,
community and
absolutely.
in the state and in the United States.
I really wish they'd start licensing cats. I know people are so against that.
We were just at another one, and people said the
I
same
really
thing. The problem with licensing well, don't get me started now.
wish- I
The
know.
problem with licensing cats is once they become licensed, they have to be housed. Right? Like we house a dog. If a dog's not licensed and it gets picked up on the road, we have to house it. We
Oh,
don't
I
house
see.
cats currently because there's no
Okay.
laws or regulations regarding them running at large. And I don't know where we put them. The
Yeah.
facility is small and there's
I
abundance
know,
of
the
cats in
safe
the world.
haven is so
Export.
full.
Safe, I like where your head's at.
What'd you say?
Export them.
Ex-
Unfortunately, every place we export to has the same problems we do.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Just a quick reminder, try and keep the talking to a minimum or anything.
Me too.
No, you
Just
can talk.
kidding.
You can't talk. You can't talk.
Any other questions?
No, thank
Sure.
you, that was great.
You got it. That's all we had, just a quick brief thing, and if nobody has any other questions.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank
the
you, thank
overview,
you.
Lieutenant Looney. And just for councils, I know that we haven't had this, well, every once in a while we get it. And remember that the answer is on a dog complaint that, and we usually try to handle these, you know, when we do nuisance and weeds, we try to handle that as an RFA, and we try to handle it, and we don't allow neighbors to intervene, because then I'm using Sergeant Frambies and, you know, Deputy Vanderhoof, and it turns into sometimes a circus. So it is important to note the distinction here, as Lieutenant has pointed out very clearly, it's up to the neighbor to make that video and have that recording that they can show in court. And I will say that that's changed. It's been about 5 years now where that's, right? It's been about
Pretty close,
almost
yeah, I would
5
say,
years.
because we've taken over 8 years ago, and there was a lot of confusion about that. So it's probably been 5-6 years where we got a definitive, like, this is what you need. And she's not gonna, she'll hear them, but you're not gonna get a you know, a very good resolution without that,
And we've
if at
had,
all.
in that time, we've had 4 or 5 folks who the judge has gotten for that. So it is something that happens, but then again, you know, some people don't want to be recording the neighbor's dog, and sometimes that can mushroom into other issues for the sheriff's
Yeah.
office and the city as well.
And as I tell everybody, if you have a rapport with your neighbor, just go talk to them if you can, right? I mean, if there's a breakdown there, you gotta get us involved. But a lot of times the neighbor doesn't even realize, oh, that it's a nuisance. They're used to the dog barking, and they don't realize it's bothering the neighbor. If you just talk to them,
Yeah.
usually that resolve things, or can help. resolve
Sometimes they
things.
go to work and they don't realize.
That is
what's going
that's a
on.
fact,
It's a
100%, and they don't
fact.
realize it. And there's other options, like we can educate on, you know, bark collars, or, you know, doing things to keep the dog entertained so it's not barking all the time.
Mhm.
So that's the first step, talk to your
Yeah.
neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Librarian Sherry Limhouse, would you like to give a report?
Yes.
Oh. Excuse me, Sherry, just 1 second before you get started.
That's okay.
I'll
I
just
got
think it
some
through. Okay.
fluffing to do. You guys are so lucky.
Do you want me to record it?
No, I got it. That's fine. This is just a recap. I'll wait for you, Ann.
Sorry, Sherry.
Hi. You guys are my favorite.
Thank you.
I just was thinking about talking with you folks. My name is Sherry Limhouse. I am your town librarian. Sorry, I forgot that part. I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight, and I was like, okay, I've been here for 13 years. So the babies that were born 13 years ago are now teenagers. That's kind of exciting. After I first started, there was some grandparents that flew out from Florida, and they donated a book for each of the girls in honor of their second birthday or third birthday. And the family came in to find those books. So that was really kind of cute to see the impact of reading with young children over the years. And I believe in 2016, so I'm sure that's the wrong date, but I sang my first ditty. And I thought we would recap that one. Just the first two verses, because the original one has like, it's a whole page. It was too many. I remember looking at my coworker and their face going, oh, would she please? So this was my first ditty. First I roll right out of bed and jump into the flower beds, cut 3 dozen flowers there and bundle them up tight. Then I set the sign out front, pull the wagon good and straight, place the bundles nicely there and run back into the house. My name is Sherry Limhouse and I am the town librarian. I am the very picture of your busy mom librarian. Oh yeah. That was the song that got me on the internet. Alex Paul came to the next one and he videotaped it, and so yeah, you can look up the second one, Sherry Limhouse, like lyrical librarian. So the budget just you nobody said anything. I wanted to jump up and say yay. In the library budget this time we're switching the library software. You're going to be able to look at our catalog online for the first time in 115 years. You can renew your books online. Yay! I'm super excited about that. The other really cool thing is that come January 2023, they're going to flip the switch because we got a $10,000 donation, and we're getting ebooks and e-audiobooks. It's been on my wish list for 10 years. I'm super excited about that. We will still have books, physical books, yes. We're still excited about that. But we are a town of commuters, and having that audiobook can be a real godsend on that. And you can listen to it washing dishes, working in the garden, driving the kids to school, walking the dog. I'm a junkie, sorry. So my library board members are still smiling about that new service. Summer reading program is happening in July, Thursdays of July, and I was sweating it because I thought I was going to have to do story time and craft all month of July and Friday, and Miss Thea said, oh, I have so much fun, I just can't stay away. So that made me real happy. Whew, dodged that one. And then in the fall, we'll start up programming for evening programs on the third Thursday for adults. I'm going to do probably a canning preserving. There's been a lot, with COVID, there's been a whole lot of interest in, preserving your own food, and I would just come in and talk about how I do like pickled beans and pickled beets. They're probably one of the easiest things to can. I'm talking with the local attorney about doing the wills, trusts, and estate planning. Don Lyon is going to come back for World Cultures and Travel. We'll do some more armchair travel around the world, and I'll do a craft night too. So the library is just blossoming. Everybody's happy to come in. We're seeing new folks from the new development come in and get cards, so it's all a good time. Any questions?
Good job.
Yes, as always.
Except for your singing.
My singing not very good.
Last time you played a ditty with it, so you played an instrument. So.
I have not tuned my auto harp for a while. So I'll have the mayor help me with that for
There you
the
go.
next
Yeah,
one.
the mayor can actually sing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard him.
Yeah.
I kept trying to get him to write the last one, so
Musical
recap.
I'm glad you didn't sing one I suggested to you today.
Yeah, everybody knows the ABC's done, but thanks.
Take care. Public Works Director, Mr. Frank, reporting for us this evening.
Good evening. Just going to report on a few things tonight. So with all the heavy rains and stuff that we had, I reported last month that we had run out of chemicals for discharging. We had to shut down early. Well, with all the excess rain and stuff, it actually filled the sewer ponds back up. We were within 0.2 of a foot of overflowing. So I contacted DEQ and we were granted an extension to discharge. I requested for an additional 30 days. So they granted us the 30 days because our chemicals actually showed up May 17th. So we started discharging on May 18th, which I'm very happy about because we wouldn't have made it through the summer the way the ponds were. It's never happened before. Not really certain why it happened this year, but it did. Maybe just the extra rain. Anyway, so it was an act of Congress to get that permit to discharge out of season because our discharge season ends May 1st. And so they granted me from May 18th through June 18th to do discharging. I don't anticipate it's going to take 30 days to discharge the ponds down, but in the event something goes wrong, I need a little buffer space because they aren't going to grant us 2 of those. So that was kind of a big deal. I told Scott that we actually had a fellow government agency cooperate with us for a change. So
I had a mini stroke. Because you got a response in like 48 hours. We had an actual physical letter.
I had an oral okay within 2 hours.
Wow.
Sending the email. And then I think it was the same day that I got the letter.
Yeah.
That formal letter from them. So anyway, so it's all gonna work out. We're currently discharging from both treatment plants. The ponds, of course, are going down remarkably fast because it's drying up, so I think we'll be done in another week actually, but knock on wood on that one. So in the streets, I'm calling it grading the roads. That's kind of an understatement of what we did. Basically, we went around and filled potholes in. We have a small tractor with a box blade since we don't have a road grader anymore. So the guys were out there just doing the best they could to try to scrape up loose material and get the roads flattened back out and smooth. And I know that people who live on those roads appreciated it, and we know that we'd like to do more. We're just not able to do so at this time. Hopefully we'll be able to acquire a road grader in the near future. I've had a couple bites on road graders. The problem is that they're obsolete machines, meaning there's no parts available for them. One of them had a Cummins engine, might be able to get Cummins parts, but the rest of the machine is obsolete. So it's really hard to find parts for those types of machines. And unfortunately, those are the types of machines that we can afford at this time. So we'll continue to work on that, and I just continue to watch auction sites and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and that type of stuff for those items in hopes that maybe we can acquire a decent road grader and we can get back to maintaining roads much better than what we're capable of doing now. I'm sure a lot of people in town noticed we hired a paint striper to come in and paint all the curves and lines and everything on the road. So he's been busy at it. He's done a fantastic job so far. But I don't think we've had any curb painting done for at least 2 years. So it's nice to see everything painted again. Just keep in mind, Main Street belongs to Lynn County Road Department, so we don't paint the center lines. That's up to them. We have to maintain the parking stripes and that type of stuff. That's why we're maintaining those. And the cross street crosswalks, we don't maintain the piano keys or anything. That's all Lynn County Road Department. And they've specifically told us they don't want us out there doing that, so we just wait for them to do their maintenance out there. So he's almost done though. We put parking bars on every stop sign around town, which has needed been done for years. The only thing left to do now is stenciling with the directional arrows and stuff like that. So we're almost done, but he had to order the stencils and like everything, it's taking time. Like with our box blade, as an example, our box blade. So the wear bars on them have worn all the way down. So in searching and finally found the parts, I can't even get new grater blades until July. So they're on order, but I have to wait for them to show up. So basically, we can't really use our box blade at this point because we're actually wiring into the box itself. So we gotta wait for the new blades to show up so we can continue to use that. And I'm hoping to have that pretty soon because I want to get the roads graded and gravel before we do dust control, so. And typically we do dust control around the end of July, so. Our new park caretakers showed up over the weekend, and they started on Monday. Their names are Jason and Leanna Stone, and they are all the way from Corvallis. So it's kind of nice to have somebody kind of local for a change. I guess they've been coming to Pioneer Park for years, going to the Festival of Tents and some of the other events that go on down there, so they're super excited to see the events from the other side. I warned them about it, but they're still excited. They're still excited to come, so. They do have 4 small children down there, so we're kind of interested to see how that's gonna play out this summer, but it should be pretty fun. It's always nice to see, kids playing in the park and stuff like that. It makes it feel like a park to me. And at the cemetery, so what we're currently working on is we're up at the cemetery, mowing, bagging all the grass up, getting everything weeded and blowed off for Memorial Day weekend, this coming weekend. So, of course, that means all hands on deck are at the cemetery, so everything else in town kind of lacks a little bit until we get that done, which will probably be done on Thursday. And then we'll be out busting around town trying to catch up on the mowing in town, so. It's a never-ending project till about July. And so Scott had some items that he had posted up here, and I'll try to remember what we talked about. So the cam strip meters, for those that were involved with council or on council, back in 2019, we installed all new water meters in the system. They're a radio read system. So a little history with that. So when we used to read the water meters, we used to be a crew of 3 people, so it took 2 people 2 days, sometimes 3 days to read all the water meters. So it could be anywhere from 16 to 32 hours, depending on the weather and how many boxes are full of water and yada yada, all the things that go with that. Now, with the radio read system, I go out and read the water meters, and it takes me about an hour and a half to do it. In the wintertime, it can take a little longer. They read a little slower through the water, so sometimes it's 2 hours. But either way, it's a remarkable, not only a remarkable savings to the city, because now our crews are out able to perform other tasks other than 2 or 3 days each going out there. And then usually after you walk that many miles, the guys are tired, so then it's kind of a day or two of reduced work, if you will, just so they can have some little recovery time. But we don't deal with that anymore, and the system has worked out fantastic. One of the things I want to do is do a presentation and show you how it works. It's really simple. Actually post what I see in the pickup and have it work. It'll probably even pick up a couple water meters outside, so you might actually hear how it works and everything. It's a pretty simple system to use, except you have to have a password, and that's my job security. So. Otherwise, so I'll just pick the items one by one. So the OLCC thing. So recently, the city was notified that we were by law, because of this has to do with marijuana. So it has to do with marijuana growing. By law, if we sell water to bulk water to a person that's going to be intending to use the water to water more than 4 marijuana plants, we have to report it to the state. It's not saying that they're violating the law, but we have to report to the state that bulk water has to be reported to and that's not a rule that we came up with. I received an email, Scott received the same thing, we had a discussion about it. We've already created a new form that we have to actually ask each person that buys bulk water from the city if the intended use of it is for marijuana. So that is a recent change. I didn't ever think we'd have to be dealing with that, but here we are. So I don't remember exactly what you were.
Well, I thought we might talk here, Carl, just about infiltration, the difference between the sanitary and the sewer system, and then the responsibility of the homeowner and the city in sanitary, sewer, and water. You probably can't see.
I'm trying to read it, and there's no way, even if I have my glasses on. So by law, we have to separate stormwater from sanitary sewer. It used to be It used to be they call them combined sewers. The roof drains and everything went into the sanitary sewer, and you could treat it because it was really cheap to do, and now it's not, they don't do that anymore. It's not cost effective to do it that way. So everything has to be separated, so towns like Corvallis have spent millions of dollars to separate their sewers. Now they're heading in a direction where you're gonna have to treat stormwater, so they're gonna wanna combine all the sewers again, so you're gonna have to spend millions of dollars to hook them all back together. That's the direction that we're headed in the world. It's just, it is what it is. I don't know how to argue, you can't argue with the state about that. So in terms of, what is I&I, inflow and infiltration? So inflow is water that is directed into the sewer with intent, meaning like a roof drain is hooked to the sanitary sewer, or your driveway drain or something like that is directly connected to the sewer, and it's intentionally running into the sanitary sewer. So that's what is classified as inflow, which is, of course, is against the law. You're not supposed to do that. And we can test for that through smoke testing and cammering and everything if it came down to an issue. And we have come across them, and we've had the owners correct them. So infiltration is like leaking at pipe joints or at manholes, or water running in through manhole lids, or anything unintended flow that comes into the system. In 2008, when we replaced, I don't know, I'd say 70% of the sewer system, we had an inflow.
45%. Yeah, it's 45%.
I would say that 70% of our system is tight though, through the subdivisions and other things that have been done, other projects that the city has performed. We had an inflow rate where we were getting in over 3 million gallons a day on just during the winter time, prior to the project. Some of you may recall, we used to have to rent large pumps, diesel pumps, and we'd have to go out there around 24/7 because the lift stations and stuff couldn't even keep up with the flow. Roll forward 2008, we did the project. Our rate now in the wintertime, we take in about 1.5 million gallons total. That's not 3 million gallons on top of what we were getting before, it's total. So we dropped down easy 80% on our the inflow and infiltration of our system. So it was as expensive as it was a pretty remarkable difference. And of course, ongoing maintenance is going to maintain that. If we don't continue to maintain our system, we're going to be right back at the 3 million gallons a day before you know it. So all the products are prone for failure, concrete products. So the slide that Scott just popped up here. So what this is indicating is, so everything on my right, which assuming everybody looking at it is on their right, is owned by the city. Everything on the left side is owned by the homeowner. Where the red line is where the red line is where the city is responsible to. And there's a lot of confusion in town of what the city repairs, what the city doesn't repair. So basically in the water, we repair up to and including the water meter. Everything beyond that is the homeowners, and it's their responsibility to repair. And based on the way our ordinances are written, the homeowners are responsible for the entire sewer lateral all the way to the main line. Even if it goes out under the asphalt or anything, that's the homeowner's responsibility. In conjunction with this, I go out and do all the utility locating. So the city's only responsible to mark what we own. So we own up to the water meter on the properties. So I only mark to the water meters. I'm not allowed to go on private property and do utility locating. Because the minute I start locating on private property, that's when the city becomes liable if something's hit that wasn't marked. And so the city can't be responsible for sprinkler lines or other lines that go around the house to an outside faucet somewhere, other things. There's always a lot of complaints and confusion when it comes to the locating and why we're not locating on private property. And that is the reason why. So under law, I have to mark the sewer laterals if I have information available to mark them. And we have information on, I would say, probably 60% of the sewer laterals in town. So I try to mark them as much as I can to ensure that they don't get hit. We had one lateral out of all the work that Lyrica did in town that got hit. One water service got hit. One water main got hit on accident. So pretty remarkable that we can accomplish that and have very little damage to our system with that scale of work going on, particularly directional boring, which is, you know, they're required by law to go around and pothole and locate everything and make sure that they're at the right depth, but sometimes things get missed and sure enough, they get hit. So I don't know if people are gonna have questions about this.
Oh, that's good.
I hope I covered
Can
enough.
I, yeah, well, I want you to cover one more thing for me. So, because we have this, and the reason why we do this every year, council, is because these are complaints that we get regularly, and it's nice for council to know also. Can you talk about sewer surcharge? So like on a normal sewer complaint, somebody calls you and says, hey, sewer's backed up. We run them through that just briefly.
So the most common, the common calls that I get are is that the sewer is backed up in somebody's house and they want the city to come out and fix it. Well, it's, even, they'll have the rooter services come out and they're telling them it's 70 feet out and it's in the road, and it again, whether it's a blockage, a breakage, or anything, that the home, that's just the way the ordinance are written here in town. The homeowner is responsible for the lateral all the way to the main line. The city is only responsible for the main line. So unfortunately, that's part of the job. The other complaint, you know, the sewage is backed up in their house, they're rushing around, and I tell them, if it was a sewer main backup, you wouldn't be the only one that had sewage backup in your house, because everybody's hooked to the sanitary sewer on that line. And so you might be the lowest point in the line, or somebody else might be, but typically more than one house is backed up if it's a city sewer main. We've only had that happen a couple of times, maybe twice since I've started here, where it actually backed up. One of the houses has backed up quite a while because the person was out of the country. And it had backed up for quite a while. And unfortunately, luckily it was an insurance thing, so. But there's a distinction that people, I hope, understand, that they are solely responsible for the lateral lines and the city is solely responsible for the main line. And that's probably one of the primary complaints that I get when sewer backups occur.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
You good? Moving on to planning. Elizabeth Coleman, our planning specialist, you have something for us?
I do, council. So Scott asked me to take a look and talk to you all about some of the challenges that we have, or I have, or staff has, when it comes to the planning department. So, for instance, you know, we have up here conceptual ideas. Property owner, developer contacts me and they have an idea of what they would like to do with a particular property. And they want me to let them know what they can do. I can only go so far with that. So for instance, I need to ensure that the Brownsville Municipal Code and the Public Works standards are adhered to. So does that project, where does that project fall within those two things? And it's my responsibility to make sure that there's compliance. Other thing I have to do is determine whether or not it's an outright permitted use, or is it a conditional use. Outright permitted use, you all probably know this already, but to recap, it's something like, doesn't have to typically go to the planning commission for a hearing, public hearing. I don't have to do a staff report on it. And it is, say, volume commercial zone is, it's a grocery store, it's a restaurant, or it's a gas station. So it's a Dollar General, it's a Dairy Mart, it's Brownsville Body Shop. Outright permitted use. They still have to follow local, state, federal requirements, and they follow what our Brownsville Municipal Code says and our Public Works standards. So there's that, and then there's the conditional use. So conditional use, for instance, as they go back to the volume commercial zone, you have your Dollar General, or you have your property that has something on it, but now you want to put also a dwelling or a caretaker's unit to go with that primary use. Or you want to put in an RV park in that zone. So if that zone allows it, it's still a conditional use. It is not outright. It's got to go to the planning commission. The planning commission has the authority to place conditions on that use. That can be, there's certain lighting that you have to do. You can't you have to have a primary use before you can have a secondary use, which means that dwelling for that caretaker or that owner cannot be occupied unless there's a primary business going on that property, just as a nutshell. And these types of things, again, conditional use. They place conditions on it. Parking, They can place conditions on the amount of parking, but it also has to go with the Brownsville Municipal Code. So the next thing, something that I do not perform, unless maybe you're my daughter, I'll tell you that I perform these things. I'm not a mind reader. I cannot determine what you're gonna do with your property. I can listen to your idea, but again, I gotta go back to the code. Does it meet the code? Does it meet the public works standards? And I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you if what you decide that you're gonna do is gonna be successful, or I can't tell you that it's gonna be a great idea for the city of Brownsville. And I am not a genie, so I don't grant wishes as much as I would, there are wishes that I would like granted. I do not grant wishes, and so that's just it. And speaking of granting wishes, I don't make deals. So it's my responsibility to fulfill the requirements that are set forth, or make sure that those requirements are fulfilled from the code. I can talk to the planning commission, I can consult with them on some things that may come up, because they're a good tool, use for that. Staff reviews, very important. I cannot do any of those things without a plan. Again, you got a conceptual idea, that's really nice. You have a dream, that's great. But if I don't have a plan, I cannot help you. Developer, contractor, property owner. We have to go through, at a minimum, we have the city engineer, we have planning consultant, we have myself, we have the city administrator, we have public works superintendent. All of us have to go through the plan to determine where it fits in where I just spoke of. Those two things, standards and the development code. So nothing much can happen until I have some of that information. We are not other cities. I hear this on a regular basis.
I love that one.
Well, in Corvallis, you do it like we do it. They do it like this. In Medford, well, when I lived in so-and-so, this is how it was done. Well, this is the city of Brownsville, Oregon, and we do it this way. So please keep that in mind. And 99% of the things that we do in our code, the development code and the public works standards, are often statewide. So they're not always a fresh and new thing. They just don't fit with what that person wants to do. So, yeah. And then as city, we have to protect the city from liability. That's very important to me as well, because I can't just go out and tell a person, this is what you can do with your property. This is what you need to do with your property. No, I have to get the plan and then get it all out to the powers that be, and then we have to review it. And we have to also make sure that it fits with the code. Taxpayer protection, all of you that are here, we are a line of defense. We have to make sure these things are done. Also, the infrastructure and the integrity of the lines that we have. It's Public Works' responsibility as well as my responsibility to make sure that they have the information that they need when it comes to the plan. And they have to follow those local requirements and county, state requirements, including FEMA, which is federal. And that is the floodplain. There's a lot of Brownsville that's located in the floodplain, and that means there are more responsibilities and requirements. And they're not fun. A lot of people understand that they have to raise their property, raise their homes, but they don't always understand that it takes some doing, and that they're going to have to get an elevation certificate, and they're going to have to get a surveyor involved. And the city is not a surveyor. We don't do that. We don't refer, we don't do any of those things, but we do like to make sure for our benefit, the city's benefit, and the property owner's benefit, that they're following those rules. So these are the kind of things that I have to look at every day, all day, really. And I appreciate the phone calls that we get. I appreciate people calling because they want to be in Brownsville, because as we all know, Brownsville is a great place to live. But in order to get here, sometimes we have to make sure that we're following the rule. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for people to come to the city with a plan. And I don't mean on a napkin. It just mean a concise plan. We're not saying in many cases that it has to be, you know, a $10,000 plan, but it needs to be concise because I have to get it to Carl and our city engineer, our planning consultant, and Scott. And that's a lot of people to please, I gotta tell you.
And so to that end, thank you, Elizabeth. She usually wears roller skates while icing in her job. She does, you know, I'm coming from Indiana, I'm a basketball guy, so she is our point guard. And a lot of times she finds herself in untenable positions because I'm growly about it, Carl's growly about it, everybody's growly about it, and poor Liz is in the middle trying to make sure all the boxes are checked. She's like, okay, I'm glad you're happy about that, but I need this. And so, Elizabeth, we really appreciate all of your hard work and your patience.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mr. McDowell, would you like to comment on the report that you've provided to us?
I got a lot to go through, actually, and I will try to be as succinct as possible. I'm telling you, tonight's not the night for succinctness. I will be quick, but I've got a lot to cover. Okay, so to that end, let me get started. So one of the things that council's going to consider tonight is action item authorizing Rural Economic Alliance Agreement. I told council that I was going to other councils to present this. I've been to Halsey so far, but this is the presentation for you all. So economic development, regional partnership, our story. So Rural Economic Alliance is something that we are all part of. And how did that start? Well, back in 2014, the GO team was formed. What was the GO team? Well, the GO team was Ford Family Foundation had come into our area in about 2008, 2009, and they started leadership cohorts in Sweet Home, Lebanon, and Brownsville, and Halsey. And that consisted of about 20 or 30 folks who went through multiple week leadership course, and then that culminated in a project. Well, the GO team was a culmination of all of those cohorts, which I think I got hoodwinked into being on that a little bit. But anyway, we did parlay that into the Rural Lynn Economic Development Plan. We spent 2 years working with those communities and those representatives saying, okay, what would make the biggest footprint in our area? How can we really affect and move the needle on economic well-being, on people's well-being, on all of it? And the thing that we kept coming back to was economic development. So what did that mean? That means the cities of Brownsville, Lebanon, and Sweet Home councils got together and started working together informally on several things around that. One of the big things, well, and then in 2016, 2017, Halsey and Harrisburg joined the party officially. And then we took that show on the road to our friends at the Council of Governments, and some of our Benton County rural cities said, man, we love that idea, let us play. So we started amassing Adair Village, Monroe, and Philomath. So we all met, been a totally grassroots effort. And I'm excited to say that it's held together quite well for quite a while. Council might recall that we then started calling ourselves the Mid-Valley Partners, or MVP. It consisted of those 8 cities. That was our first little lame logo that we put together that nobody liked, but we did it anyway. That's what compromise gets you sometimes. But we worked together and we were successful doing self-funding. What does that mean? Well, that means that Lynn County and Benton County worked with us quite greatly to hire RAIN, or the Regional Accelerator Incubator Network. Now you know why they call it RAIN. And we got some grants through, I got a grant through Business Oregon to do some things. And then we started having a little bit of success with some of the opportunities that we were presenting. We've been self-funding. All of the cities have pitched in, you know, to the tune of the city. Sometimes we go up to as high as $5,000 on our contribution to this. But what we're getting for that money is really, it's almost immeasurable, because we're getting access to Lebanon staff and Sweet Home staff who have on-site economic development directors, and we're in the loop, right? So how does that work? Well, in 2019, right at the end of 2019, I was going around to all the councils then too, and we were going to, we had created an official intergovernmental agreement that had some outcomes that we were all in agreement on and that we wanted to drive toward. All of the councils voted unanimously to move forward with that intergovernmental agreement. And then we came to the screeching halt because of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. So basically what happened there was everybody went to their corners and waited for nearly a year before we started back. Then in 2021, we said, hey, it's time to go. We got to get going. So we started meeting again. We hired J. Ray, because a big piece of this was marketing and the website development. So the first logo you saw was one of the logos that they have created for the Rural Economic Alliance. And so we've got that going. We're working right now on the website. We added the city of Tangent in 2021. They've joined, so now we're the 9 cities, and I expect that we'll see SIO probably join in early 2023. So what does that mean? It means we got a bright future. But what we were asking council for tonight is the IGA runs out June 30th of 2022. And we would like to continue this IGA for another 2 years so that we can finish the objectives and the outcomes that we were looking for from the original agreement. And then we're going to build a strategic plan with all of those cities to bring it back to council. Hopefully in about a year and a half, we'll have that for everybody's consideration. What are some of the highlights of this? Well, it puts Rural Economic Alliance kind of in the center of this hub. What's exciting about this? For me, a lot of things are exciting about this. Of course, we're working with the county, both Benton and Lynn. The Cascades West Council of Governments Economic Development Arm has been coming to the table now on this because of, I think, our energy and drive. Chambers of Commerce, RAIN, the state of Oregon through Business Oregon. Melissa Murphy there loves this. Basically how this works is if Melissa has, as an example, this is one of the challenges that we have. So the biggest thing about economic development is really retention. We want to retain what we have. It's great to add, it's great to attract, but we really want to be able to take care of the businesses that we have, and we also want to be able to expand those businesses. But every once in a while, the state will call. I had a call a few years ago, Miriam Ware and I tried to deal with it on literally, this was the scenario. I got a call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The people had 6 sites around Brownsville that they wanted to look at, all which were privately owned. Some owners we knew, a couple we didn't, and they wanted to see if those folks were interested, and they needed to know by Friday at 10 a.m. So these are the kinds of things that now that we have this relationship, we're not finding out less than 24 hours to make these things happen. The other great advantage I think that we have here, and to me is a gigantic selling point for this whole entire program, is we've got University of Oregon, we've got Oregon State, we've got Lynn Benton right in our backyard, right? And what the Golden Triangle is in North Carolina, and that's really where the idea comes from. Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, they're all there, and what they do is they capture their talent. So we have these unbelievable universities that are cranking out these inventors, and these inventors are going to states like Montana and Indiana and South Carolina, and they're taking those things with them. And we're trying to capture that talent and keep it in Oregon. So, and the other thing that's cool about this too, in terms of economic growth, is the model for economic growth, quite frankly, has changed. One of the rallying cries that I used is, since the spotted owl in Oregon, we've done, this area had done nothing in terms of a regional approach to regional economic development. And this really has been a grassroots effort toward helping that. And now with the internet, of course, and with people being able to work from home, and now with the pandemic, one of the silver linings there, if there was one, would be the fact that people are now very good at working at home and don't want to go back. And they also want to create their own businesses. These resources all help folks do that. And now that we have Illyrica and high-speed internet in town, it really makes Brownsville very, very attractive. Not that it wasn't attractive, as Elizabeth said before, but it's really enhanced our attractiveness. So that is my spiel on real. I made that rhyme on the fly, though you may not believe it. So council made a relatively historic decision recently. Our current court clerk, Carol Humphreys, will be retiring on June 22nd for her second time. Her second career was coming to work for us, which was also her first career, because she's been a court clerk for a very long time, which Councilor Humphreys can attest to. Our judge is Jessica Meyer. Our judge will continue to be Jessica Meyer as we move from the municipal court to the Lynn County Justice Court. Many of our communities in Lynn County now belong to the Justice Court. What does that mean? That means folks will, if they get a citation in Brownsville, they'll have to appear in Lebanon's Justice Court for that purpose. The commissioners, in the council packet, you will see that they have executed the intergovernmental agreement for this to take place. What has been happening? A lot. There's a lot of moving parts to this. And we have a good team of people working on it. Carol, myself, the judge, and Angie Devon over at Lynn County Justice. We've notified Robert Schneider, the city prosecutor, to let him know that his responsibilities will change to the city. We've let Danielle Myers, who was relieved, which I was glad, because that was not a great day to be a city administrator, I'm sorry, but we no longer need your services. She's like, thank you. There's so much to do. I'm like, yes. But we've located, we've let the Oregon State Police know, the Department of Revenue, Criminal Justice, CGIS, Lynn County Sheriff's Office, they've got to start citing into the Justice Court. Anyway, you can see Shavs Consulting getting the transition for the computer so that it's seamless for the county, and then making sure that we have PayGov, which is our bill provider, that it goes now to the proper channel. So we're working on that. We're getting it in place. May 18th was the last court date here in the hallowed halls of Fisher Hall in the city. So it was a somewhat emotional day for some of us. As we move out of that update, given an update here now on the Central Lynn Rec Center Innovation, Jonathan Dunn and Tyler Miller from Woodblock Architecture had done a fantastic job getting everything ready for that. They've done a 3D model on the rec center. They went through every nook and cranny, and they've done a fantastic job. The city hired Udell Engineering to do the survey work. We hired KCL Engineering to come in and do mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Mr. Frink hired a group to come in and camera the sanitary sewer. Nothing's been done to the rec center since the 1930s in terms of major improvements like this, so we wanted to make sure we were as thorough as possible, so it got the full run. As council knows, I asked for an ad hoc committee, or I created an ad hoc committee to do project review, where we took a look at the plans and the specifications as identified. We have a couple of alternatives for that, so I'd like to thank the committee who worked on that. We had Katie Kali, who was the president of the rec center. We had Brandy Simon from the city's park board, Hillary Norton, the city manager from Halsey, Councilor Chambers, thank you for your service on that committee, Mr. Coleman, or Mrs. Coleman, Mr. Frank, and myself. Next steps, right now, the architect is working with Wayland Construction. They're coming in and they're going to give council a working estimate by June 13th. So I hope that council can make a decision on June 28th as to what our next steps are. Where we were at was that we would start that construction in earnest in June of 2023. So we are on a bit of a tightrope, and there are some decisions that will need to be made soon. So that is forthcoming. Moving on to links, Mayor Ware, Councilor Thompson have been helping with this. We have got good news to report here. I think all of council have received, and I think most of the CFA board, if not the whole CFA boards here tonight, received an invitation to the community partners discussion. The Brownsville Senior Center, along with the American Legion and the Senior Center, have agreed to be bus stops in Parcel. And Kendra Oliver and folks from Lebanon are going to come over and talk logistics, routes, rates, and talk a start date. That meeting is going to happen at the Legion and Senior Center at 7 p.m. on June 2nd. So we're excited about that possibility. In a nutshell, what that is they would like to do 2 days a week and four trips a day. So folks can get over to Lebanon and do doctor's appointments, shop, whatever. So that should be forthcoming soon. Let's see, what else is on here? Oh, the budget, of course, becomes approved next month, as I said earlier. We've got a lot of work to do at the end of June, 1st of July, because the audit is, that's the next slide. I'll get into that in a minute. But we've got to get the budget into the general ledger system, and then we got to make sure all the documents are prepared. That's what the next step is for Tammy and I after the June council meeting. The public works standards, I know Elizabeth mentioned those quite a bit. I think as equally as we're appreciative of Camstrup and the efficiencies that brought, the public works standards since their adoption in 2014 has been just tremendously beneficial to not only your city staff, but the integrity and a protection to the taxpayers, so that we make sure that we get these things in correctly. Ryan Quigley has asked for another month, so those public works standards will be coming to council review and approval at the next meeting. Tammy, was there anything at EPC that you wanted to report?
EPC, so we're working on a newsletter that will go out in July. It'll be a one-page, we talked about a little bit about what we want to focus on, and it's probably dry stuff, fire, defensible space, campfire, have a shovel ready, those kind of things. That'll go out in July. We do another one in January. Let's see, we're talking about maybe doing an ice cream event in August, just kind of getting some more information out to folks, just have them stop by. Probably do it down at the Legion because it's right downtown. We did it in the park one year, but we didn't have a whole lot of turnout. So because we're kind of out of the way, people didn't see us. So we
And it was 108 degrees.
It was hot, so ice cream would have been good, but
If it wouldn't have melted.
we melted. So we're gonna maybe try it downtown and see if we can just get some more information out to folks. We've got some pamphlets and some brochures and some different things. We're also gonna do probably the play date at the elementary school. Marilee Frazier and I, and maybe Norm, he's the chairman, Sims, where we go over and we put on just a little class. They have little stations, and so we run one with some EPC stuff. We have some handouts we put in their backpacks to take home, and we just talk about, if you have to evacuate your house, what would you bring? And so then we have a backpack, and what can you put in that backpack? So we do a little exercise like that for the kids. It's really fun. So just kind of trying to do some community outreach that way. So we've been busy. It's been kind of hard with the pandemic. They haven't had the play date over there for a couple of years, so this will be the first time back in a couple of years, so we're excited to do that.
Thank you. Okay, where are we at with DPREP, disaster preparedness? So where we're at right now is we've got the rates. We have one more discussion to have, and we're trying to decide whether to do the contract or not. That meeting will take place next week, so I'll have to report back on that for council soon. Nuisance abatement, we did start that a little bit early due to several complaints that were relatively severe. So we usually don't go out until the 1st of June on that, but we did make an exception and go out early. Fortunately, I'm happy to report we only have about a half dozen of those, and all of those folks have contacted the city and are working toward compliance with those codes, which is fantastic. It's so great that it's working so smoothly. I wanted to make a note on the website. We have, if you make a reservation, so when you make a reservation, you say rent the council room or the room next door, the community room or the Kirk room or the rec center or whatnot, we did make a modification to the page. I'm not going to jump out of there and show the council, but when you get the make a reservation button now, right underneath that, you can click facility rates, and it takes you to all the rates, including tables and chairs, and how to do that. So we were excited about that. Little upgrade. As I mentioned a moment ago, Singer Lewak, our auditor, is going to come in and audit us the first week of August. That's why it's a tightrope, because as you know, the fiscal year ends June 30th, and we cannot really get them all the reports they need. We're going to stand on our head for a few days there around the holiday. So that'll be awesome. 4th of July should be great. Pending, of course, as council knows, we're still waiting on the Pacific Power franchise agreement. Final report from Mr. Tim Tice at OAWU on our water management conservation plan, and also a conversation with the Brownsville Canal Company. A couple things here at the bottom. I know there was an article that I put in your packet about the climate change committee that the state's starting. They're going to be talking about policies, and they're going to be talking about implementation. As Carl said earlier about our utilities, how is that going to impact us greatly? There's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out of that committee that are going to impact small communities, and it's going to be very important that council, not just our council, but many councils, really watch that closely on those financial implications that could really put us in, without the funding, because that's how it works, it's always unfunded mandates. So we really need to watch that closely. One other thing that happened recently is the state of Oregon moved for paid family leave. They've decided, I guess, to get in the personnel business once again. And they're going to start assessing our employees 1% to pay for this. So the details are still forthcoming on that. Okay, River's Edge. So I know there's a lot. I told you there was a lot, and I wasn't lying. So River's Edge had a park as part of their whole development. So what you're seeing here on the left side is a real quick show of what that was going to look like, though this is not necessarily correct. But we did get this recently. The city has recently done a drainage, or approved a grading plan. Our staff has been on site. We've walked the project. We've sent them notices, and Mrs. Coleman is on top of that, as is Mr. Frank, on a daily basis. We're hoping to get this resolved soon. Just for the record, this is not a public park. This is a private development. This will be covered by the Homeowners Association. However, as part of that conditional use process that Mrs. Coleman was talking about earlier, we're making sure that the planning commission gets what they want on this. Last fall, council will recall that we required a bond for this, and the developer, not the developer, I'm saying one of the entities involved put a bond in the amount of $102,000 and change, which we do have in the coffers right now, which we are hoping that now that they've started the grading plan, that they will knock this out in a few weeks and get the trees and everything in so that we can return that money to them. So we're excited that this project's hopefully nearing completion. So that's a great segue into, oh my goodness, what are we doing with the city budget? Oh my gosh, where are we at with a whole bunch of other issues? I had an opportunity to speak to the park board recently about the tightrope that we find ourselves on in a small community like Brownsville. And my two metaphors would be walking on a razor blade and or foot over foot like a tightrope. We cannot take steps off that tightrope or we will fall off. So what are our priorities? What is in the budget? What are our priorities over the next few years? These are those. The very first priority is, of course, we were close to looking at some issues with our water and sewer utility due to rapid growth. We're okay through build out of the River's Edge subdivision, which is about just over halfway there now. And we have some capacity beyond that. You heard Carl talk about the discharge that we had challenges with this year, mostly due probably to rain. But anyway, at any rate, the GR12 water line, which council several years ago redid the well there, that's an unadjudicated water right, which means we can bring that water to the headworks, and that water is going to be about a $750,000 project. That is our number one priority right now. We've also had the engineer take a look at the water treatment plant to see if we can add another slow sand filter to help with some redundancy there. Priority number 2 I just discussed, which is the rec center. We're going to see what the actual real world budget is for that. We expect it to be probably higher than what's pictured there. The other opportunity that we're looking at doing something with is the Pioneer Park Pavilion. All of these structures are old and need replaced. Councilor Chambers will have a little bit of a report at the next meeting to tell you all about the implications of some of that in further detail. We will go into it tonight. The other thing that we're looking at, that we're working toward, we've been able to put some money back in this fiscal year's budget, is a new sewer treatment lagoon. That issue with being able to draw down the ponds is something that we need to make sure that we have enough storage for, so we have our engineer looking into that. So what does that mean? That means our money's tied up. So Kirk Avenue, which is a project that again would need to be assessed to property owners. Last time we ran the numbers was last year on that, last April and June. The assessment per property owner would be over $40,000 on that project. The Calapooya Riverbank, again, that is an old price. That doesn't include the new area. We have 5 state and federal agencies in there. It is a regulations requirement nightmare. And there's no guarantee that anything that we would do would hold. Council has done I believe, I would call it an admirable job holding the line. Basically, I think most folks know that live in Brownsville that the Calapooya is known as a wild river. It's actually classified as a wild river by state code, meaning that it moves. And so the city council now, through a couple of iterations since 2011, 2010, has held the line that we're going to retreat. So I know it's tough. We take a lot of slack for that, a lot of hate for that every year, and I know it's coming again as people get out and get into the park. So anyway, the other thing that's coming, is in the, I hear it playing, is, hey, we've got a major water treatment plant to take a look at here in the next few years as well. So these are the things that we're working on, and I also want to remind everybody, we've still got that $2.4 million bond limit through 2024. That was the bond limit where we refinanced the debt in 2016 to save our taxpayers about $2.5 million over the life of the loan. And the problem with that is, if anybody's good at math, you'll see that 2 + 1 + 1 is more than 2.4. The other thing that I want to mention here that I mentioned to the park board is, of course, we have no short of want in our community. And we do wish as a city that we could bring you all of the wants that you have. However, everybody wants it, but they don't want to pay for it. That's where the rub comes. So we hear it all, and we are aware of it, and we try to do the best we can with the resources we have. And I think overall we've done remarkably well for a community our size, and certainly punching above our weight class with a AA- rating from Standard & Poor's. The last thing I want to end on is Mayor Ware. Mayor Ware had an opportunity, and Tammy Morrow, thank you, to present the third graders with their field trip. They came to learn about city government and got to hear from the old gray mayor. And the really nice lady. And so that not only did they host the Central Elementary School, but they also hosted the Pioneer Christian Academy. Here's your thank you card for that. So thank you for representing the city in that. I appreciate it.
It was fun.
All right. Moving on to the court report that was provided to everybody in their packet. Do you have any questions on that or comments? Then we will move to the citizen comment portion of the meeting, the first citizen comments portion of the meeting. You'll have another opportunity later. We do request that you limit yourself to 3 minutes. Do we have a timer?
I do.
Okay.
What happened to council?
What happened to council?
Well,
Point of order.
fine. Point of order. Do you have any comments on council?
I do.
But do you want to wait till we have an opportunity for council comments at the end?
No.
Okay. Fire away then.
Okay. Having been on the budget committee, one of the discussion items that came up that was part of that budget is a little piece of the general fund. It's less than $2,000. I think it's like $1,700. That is the TRT, the transient room tax. I would like to ask Scott about the possibility of dissolving that account, paying out what needs to be paid out and absorbing the difference into the general fund, and getting rid of the time that we're spending on an account that's relatively stagnant. And it won't have any effect on the budget.
Right.
Okay, so if I may, if we can get maybe Council President Hanson, a vote on that real quick, and then I can bring something back for council's consideration at the June meeting.
Okay. All in favor?
I will
of-
second that.
Okay,
I would need to recuse myself.
Okay?
Yes.
right, exactly. Being a
I'm one that has to pay that tax.
Yes, yeah.
Quarterly, so I'm certainly, yeah.
Do we have a consensus to send the city administrator forth to consider that and report back to us?
Unless you want to vote no.
She can't vote, yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's quite all right. Are we okay to move on, you think?
I have something I would
Okay.
just like to make the citizens aware of and to have it in the minutes. This is from Detective Captain Dave Snippen, Lane County Sheriff's Office. I don't know if y'all got a chance to know this. He says, we just learned that the state legislature did away with all tobacco enforcement for those under 18 years old. He says he wished this was an April Fool's joke, but unfortunately the joke is once again on Oregonians. In Oregon, SB 587, the legislature buried this little nugget in section 19 without any discussion. Section 19 says ORS 167785 and 431A 180 are repealed. Oregon ORS 167785 was the statute that dealt with possession of tobacco products or inhalants delivery system by persons under 18 years of age. It has now been repealed effective September 25th. Here is an explanation he found in the article about the bill. The law also eliminates penalties for youth purchase, use, and possession of tobacco products, which will help reduce interaction between youth of color and police, and put responsibility on those who sell tobacco illegally, not on the youth. So this change has effectively ensured that new generations of tobacco users, our children, can use and get addicted to tobacco without any legal consequences. He asked to please make sure that everyone in your agency is aware of this. Taking enforcement action against a juvenile for using or possessing tobacco is no longer allowed in Oregon. And, you know, years ago, we went after big tobacco to prevent this type of thing, and now our youth are going to be able to use tobacco. I just wanted everybody to know that, and I'm sorry I took up so much time.
No,
This
that's
was
all
in our packet, and I wanted people to know this. I think it's a shame.
Why not they can buy AR-15s?
Okay. That's it, I'm done.
Okay. Any other counselors like to add something to the council report? No? All right. Now moving on to public comments. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We have a timer. State your name and address prior to commenting. And the last couple of years, you know, we've been through some turmoil, emotions have run high, so we do request that you try and keep things civil and respectful. So, anybody have any comments? Feel free.
Donald Lyon, 352 Kirk Avenue, and I'm here tonight representing the Calapooya Food Alliance. We are requesting that the council create a, I guess it would be an ad hoc committee to meet with 3 members of the Calapooya Food Alliance to discuss the future of the market at Kirks Ferry Park. We had a discussion at the last meeting about our request for a ramp. We understand why it was denied. We accept that. But there was some discussion between me and some board members that indicated to me that perhaps a majority of the board is convinced that Kirks Ferry Park should not be used for the Thursday market, and that we should look elsewhere for our market.
You mean the council?
Council, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we are looking for that committee. I suppose the procedure is for a council member to present a motion for that?
Not necessarily. An ad hoc committee is something that's typically formed by the city administrator. Certainly, a council member could do that, and take that under advisement. So
Okay.
they could request that.
Yeah, and we'd like to have that meeting as soon as possible. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about why we want to have this meeting?
No, I think that's understood. The agreement is up in November, is my understanding, if I'm recollecting correct. The sense of urgency to have the meeting as opposed to waiting to a little bit closer to when we're gonna have to be talking about it anyway, because
Well-
we're gonna have to address all these issues, so maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. It seemed to me at the meeting last month that a decision had already been made. And if there is any discussion amongst the council members, we'd just like to know what you're thinking, and if there's any reason why we should not, why you would not continue with that contract with the CFA. Would like to know more about it. If there's something that we can do to solve any problems, we're certainly anxious to do that. So let's work together, the CFA and the city of Brownsville, and let's continue to have a market in Brownsville.
Sure. I make a motion that we do form a committee, a combination from the city and from the council, to sit across from each other and just talk about this. It would seem to me that the market has been good partners with the city up until now, and certainly what they do is a benefit to the city. So I think it never hurts to get together and talk.
Sure.
And I think it's never too early to get together and talk. So I would make a motion that a committee be formed to do so.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anyone else? Oh, yes, there was a motion.
Call for discussion.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? And we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, so now, I gotta talk again. Everybody's excited about that. So, for an ad hoc committee.
Did we have abstentions?
Yeah, I would abstain.
Okay, so my question now is, of council, or do I have 2 volunteers?
I can do that.
Okay. Aren't you on the board, Michael? Or did you have
What? No, do the vote.
No.
No.
I just do their accounting. I'm not on the board officially.
Oh.
Okay.
But, you know, if you want me to run it blank, I'm fine with that.
I'd be willing to do it.
Okay.
No.
Don and Tricia.
Yep.
Don, Tricia, you get that, Michael, Don and Tricia? Pardon? Don and Tricia.
If for someone,
Alternate, Michael Humphreys.
I'll be an alternate.
Okay.
Because you already got 3 and we don't want to get into
No, I don't.
forum nonsense again. So if someone is unable to attend the meetings or you need an alternate,
Okay.
I'll act as the alternate.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Okay, so any other citizen comments at this point? Remember, you'll have another opportunity later. Okay, moving on to legislative, the matter of resolution 2022-13, which is the election to receive state revenue, which was, I believe, previously addressed by Administrator McDowell. That's typically used to cover costs of lighting, street lighting.
I move approval of resolution number 2022.13.
Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of passing resolution 2022-13, select to receive state shared revenues, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Matter 9B, Mayor Ware, I believe you have a proclamation to make.
Oh, I proclaim, actually this month, May, National Military Appreciation Week. And being a vet, I appreciate
Yourself.
veterans. Myself. And all veterans.
Absolutely.
So I make that proclamation as mayor.
Amen. Amen.
Me too, yes, excellent.
Moving on to 9C, an item that was added to the agenda, ordinance 788, is that the entire number?
That is the entire number.
Okay, 788, which is regarding nominations for city office. It's a revision to the existing ordinance, and I believe it was provided to you in the packet this evening. I'm sorry.
I make a motion to read by ordinance only.
That was the next on my list. Go ahead. Okay, so you've made the motion. All right. So the complete title is nomination for city office, is that correct?
The total title is, if I may.
You feel free.
Okay, ordinance number 788, an ordinance revising Title 1, general provisions of the Brownsville Municipal Code, Chapter 1.20, nominations for city office.
Yeah, I don't think we voted on the motion.
And you didn't.
Okay.
But that's what Don does all the time. Now he's over here trying to, I'm just doing what I normally do. Right? Okay, they're not gonna do it right, so I'm just.
He's acting like me.
The mayor. Acting like the mayor.
Okay, there was a second
So,
motion and there was a second.
there was a second.
Okay.
All right. So, all in favor of, say aye.
Aye.
Say aye. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Okay, and I just read it. It's been
Yeah, I
read.
know, it's been read, but we had to
Yep.
vote in
Yep.
retroactive vote. All right.
Okay, so as an explanation, what we're trying to do with this council is we're trying to make our practice match our code. So what we have is, we have the authority to make so if somebody puts a nomination in for council, folks could do one of two things. They could get nominations and go around and collect signatures, or they could just pay the $10. What we've been doing since 2016 is just requiring the $10 filing fee. So I had thought that a few years ago that we had made that change, and recently I got the SEL forms from the state and looked it over with the city attorney and realized that we hadn't. So what I'm suggesting is, or recommending is, under 1.20.020, candidate nomination would be modifying subparagraph B, and subparagraph B would read now, to seek nomination for election to a city office, a candidate shall pay a filing fee of $10. The reason why this is streamlined is we don't have to worry about invalidating a candidate because they didn't get the signatures. There was one year where somebody went out for signatures and they, for the lack of a better term, harassed people, and I got a ton of phone calls, like, why are we doing it this way? And the county clerk said, Scott, why are you doing it that way? Just do the $10 filing fee. I'm like, we can do that? They said, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And like I said, I thought I had passed this. So we want to get this cleaned up as for this year. We know that there are 4 seats. It could be a busy election, and we just want to make sure everything's dialed in. The other reason for this is, again, just to match the practice. So that's the explanation. Is that clarified, Don?
I think so.
Very good. Okay, very good. Because you and I talked about it, so.
And is this an emergency?
Oh, yes, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I would like to have this done as an emergency so that it can be in effect by the end of June, because at the next meeting, I will come to council asking for the election advertisements, which will go into the paper July and August for the general election. Okay?
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the revision to ordinance 788? The nominations for city office.
Yeah, I would motion to approve that revision.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, and
Yes.
that motion included the emergency clause?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to action items. Number A, the Lynn County Sheriff's Office contract was included. Memorandum from Sheriff Duncan concerning the rates over the next 3 years was included in the packet. Do we have any discussion or questions? Hearing none, as Mayor Ware says, we will entertain a motion to authorize the mayor and the city administrator to execute the necessary documents to continue the agreement with LCSO.
So moved.
We have a second.
1 second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to 10B, which is a request to authorize an extension of 2 years. Administrator McDowell discussed this earlier in his report of the agreement, the real agreement. And any discussion on that or questions?
Need a motion?
Yep, hearing none.
I make a motion
Make a motion.
that we authorize a rural economic alliance agreement extension.
Second. Did we have a second in there?
Second
was
here.
Three of them.
There's several of them.
Several. All in favor of authorizing the agreement extension, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to discussion items. Do we have any comments or questions regarding the ad hoc committee? And Administrator McDowell has met with all 4 members separately, so there was no quorum of the committee, and I think you have a summary.
I did provide,
Discussion.
I think Counselor.
Yeah, I've got kind of a summary that I put together, as I was the one who requested this committee. And I've written it down just so I don't get off track, and we can kind of keep this short. So my purpose for requesting this committee was for 3 reasons. 1, to provide clarity as to why our local newspaper seems to distort and disinform the citizens of Brownsville regarding the true business and progress within the city of Brownsville and its council. To understand why our position, that is the city's position, was not being properly investigated. And for council to consider speaking with Mr. Parrish if in fact council shared these same concerns. As council members, we know the projects that we are working on for the next year or 2 are very complex and require accurate coverage. I found my concerns crystallized as I read the article authored and published by Mr. Parrish in the May 11th, 2022 edition of the Brownsville Times. An editorial based purely on rumor, speculation, and gossip, which was cultivated by a few members of the community, all of whom were absent from the last 2 council meetings. Interestingly enough, the last 2 council meetings, which were free of attacks directed and aimed at certain councilors and staff. Council was able to conduct the city's business uninterrupted for the good of the order. Due to Mr. Parrish's reaction to hearsay, clearly he is not interested in contacting the city nor its council to seek facts or clarification. He is more interested in rushing to publish rumors. For me, this says everything and confirms my concern. So sadly, I would like to formally rescind my request to meet with Mr. Parrish because the point is moot. As this committee has discussed and agreed upon, I would like to request that this council authorize a monthly report of council meetings to the Times, so the citizens of this community can have access to the factual content of city business. I feel this would benefit the community positively by providing an unbiased, straightforward recap of city business. Also, I would like to spearhead an effort to author and submit articles highlighting the city's recent events, projects, and accomplishments which benefit all citizens of this community. Thank you to the council members who have taken the time to join this committee in seeking clarification regarding this matter. That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you.
There was a request there to, you want to restate that request?
Basically, it was to authorize, submitting a recap of, the council meetings to the Brownsville Times, as we discussed during the committee. or
We
during the
discussed
committee
like
meetings.
having, council members write.
Create a recap.
Yeah, to create a recap, a different council member every month or ad hoc committee, just to make sure it all gets, it's not gossip, it's not hearsay, that we can actually stick to the facts.
Is
stick
that
to-
something that you're looking to formalize now, or
Yeah, I mean,
It would
discuss?
be nice.
we could vote on it, yeah.
I would like to say, I think it's important to have some parameters, and I'm not saying the idea is bad, but, how often we're gonna do it, who's gonna do it, just, I think some guidelines, just kind of randomly say, any council member is.
Oh, exactly, no, yes.
And I think so I'm suggesting that we kind of think about this, and maybe the committee, all four of us, we can, well, that's still.
We cannot, no.
Okay, but I still think we need guidelines, because we just need guidelines of each, if you have 4 different people that are writing an article at different times, there needs to be guidelines that are followed each and every time. And so I'm not comfortable unless we have something like that. Just saying.
Well, we would just be, we would go through, our city administrator and.
Okay, I like that. I think
Yes,
Scott
and
certainly-
to make sure that we worded it correctly, and it's just going to be reporting on what council has done at the last meeting. That's,
Right, and I
Is
think
that
there,
correct, Adam?
I think, yeah, and I think there needs to be an open line of communication with the Times, and there hasn't been
That
up
would be
until
nice.
this point. So if that open line of communication isn't invited, to report on, the city business and the facts, then, we can work with the city administrator to, publish something, or provide something that, is based on, the minutes that Tammy works very hard on, and the actual.
Yeah, and I think to
Content
that
of the
point,
meeting.
as we discussed in the committee, because we had to meet 2 and 2, so it's May 9th with Councilor Thompson and Councilor Hanson, and May 11th with Councilor Craven and Councilor Chambers. Basically what we would do is what a lot of towns do, which is submit basically a summary of the meeting before the official minutes hit. Because again, the Times does want to report that information. They do have a reporter in the audience to report on those things. And so we would just do a summary based on that. And then so that was one issue that the committee discussed. So I want to make sure that we get all of them. The second issue that we had was, I'm not talking about editorials. To me, there's 2 things. There's the articles and then there's editorials, right? So the articles discussion was, there were a few counselors over the last few months had been misquoted, been misrepresented. And the committee said, well, really what we want to be able to do there is we just want to encourage all of the council to pay attention to what is being printed in the Times and try to address that directly with the Times if you feel that you've been misquoted, so that Mr. Parrish can print a retraction or whatever he needs to do or whatever he feels best to do there. In terms of editorials, we discussed that. Of course, editorials are something that, as they used to call them, where I come from, is fish wrap, right? It's fish wrap. The next week is another editorial. And
Yeah.
I think that everybody on this council has been through many wars and has thick enough skin to handle that. However, from time to time, there does come a time out of the 52 editions of the Times a year, there might be one a year where council may want to make sure that there's a response to it, maybe. But again, as Councilor Thompson is suggesting, guidelines for that piece would be a good idea.
Yeah.
One thing that we've always done, Mayor Ware and I have done since we started on this thing, is we used to have issues with reporters calling counselors late at night. And so we created a public information officer, right, which was Don Ware and myself, who we funneled those calls toward. And they still had access if they wanted to ask councils. And that worked for a while, but I think with where we're at, the committee's kind of looking to move a different direction. So does that cover for those of you who were on the committee, that was all the things, all the parts and pieces we talked
Yeah,
about.
I'm just
Okay.
real concerned about consistency, so,
I
It's a word I
think-
like.
I think that we're concerned about,
Policy
I think
that
we're
works.
concerned about consistency right now, which is is why we're
Yeah.
having this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
B,
Okay.
the minutes, I've been doing minutes for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Tammy's been doing minutes, I don't know, here for about 10, and I don't know if you do the minutes over at College Shed or not. Our minutes are very, very clear and concise.
Concise, yeah.
The thing about it is there's a lot of content, it's 8 to 10
Yeah,
pages.
that's why.
And to be fair, we want to make sure, I mean, one of the thrusts of this, as we discussed, was, as we saw tonight, once again, council's seen that slide now 3 times, we've got a lot of moving parts coming forward with the canal company, the renovation of the rec center, right? Some of the things that we're doing with the utilities. We're gonna wanna make sure that we get some really good articles out there,
Yes.
because that's gonna be a gigantic source of discussion for our community. So,
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Let's go for
Yes.
it.
okay, I think we've got some direction there.
Yes.
Does everybody feel good about that? Okay, okay. And I will circle back with a few of the members of that committee before it's absolutely dissolved, unless council wants to make a motion to that effect, because it really hasn't been decided all the way. So we should probably crystallize that into a motion of some
I think
kind.
that would be good, so we can get this ball moving.
Okay. Do we have such a motion? Anybody would like to make a
How
motion?
would you word that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. How would you
Suggested
word that?
wording?
I guess I would word it in a way that, I guess I would make a motion to proceed and, developing procedures to authorize a,
Monthly recap.
well, yeah. a
Summary.
monthly
Summary.
Summary of the council meeting
Monthly
I'll-
council meetings for
I will
publication
second that.
times.
Okay.
with guidelines.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
We already
Aye.
have it, I
Aye.
thought.
Any opposed?
I abstain,
Any abstain? Any abstention?
having used to run the newspaper.
Okay. Thank you for your explanation.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I would only say, I know we need to move on, but I would only say that we don't in any way want to infringe upon the paper's freedom of
No.
press. That's not what this is about, never was. It's, as Councilor Craven indicated, it was to have a good, open communication with the newspaper, because obviously accurate reporting is vital to us. We have a vested interest in that. And then the issue of letters to the editors and editorials, which is the responsibility of each individual counselor. If they feel compelled to respond to that, that's their prerogative. So making that distinction, is, I think, important. As Administrator McDowell already did. Next discussion item, park caretakers. We already
Carl
touched
covered
on
Already
this a
heard
little bit,
about that.
so Carl covered that, we can skip that. And then next is ROI grant disbursements.
So on page 50, council passed a resolution 2022.07, I believe, for the grant. We've got a rural opportunity investment grant through Business Oregon with our real partnership that we talked about earlier. And I said in that resolution that we would make sure council was aware of every disbursement, so that page 50 is that new disbursement.
Next item is the April financials. Mayor Ware, do you have any comment on the April financials? Since you're always soliciting comment, now I will solicit comment from you.
I don't.
You don't.
Lead up and you don't.
I'm being consistent with you.
Citizen comments, this is the second opportunity for anyone to comment.
Can I?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Remember, you got a 3-minute limit,
You
and
bet.
state your name and address for
Yeah.
the record.
I really feel like I have to respond to Mr. Craven's letter, and I don't remember all of it. But I would say that about.
Name and address,
Oh,
sorry.
Kathleen Swayze, 185 Main.
Thank you, we know, but for the record.
It was either 3 meetings ago or 4 maybe, it was suggested a number of times that you do a concise agenda, it wasn't the agenda could be in the paper, and it was suggested it couldn't be because it was Friday, and so we couldn't get it in the paper head, or concise minutes of this. You can always write letters to the editor. These are not editorials. It's very rare that there are editorials in the paper anymore. There were when Mayor Ware was, but there aren't anymore. And so one can always individually respond to the paper. I am really happy we have a community paper. The community paper to me is the glue that holds a lot of this community together. And I respect what was said in the paper in one of the first editorials I've ever seen from Vance. So I feel like I really need to say that back. They do the best they can. It's not always great, I agree. But I don't think they got that from rumor or slander. I think you guys always could have spoken in the paper, and you didn't. So I'm happy that you're doing this. This is great. We will get what you feel is really important, and I feel important for the citizens to know and understand. But to slam the editor of the paper really bothers me a lot, because I think that was sincere from him, straight from him. And I think he does a good job as best he can. We all do. Okay? Thanks.
I think I can speak for the entire council just to state that we do value the paper, and I do think it's a very important and integral part of the community. And we want, a good report.
And I will say that it is the glue. That's why council needs to make sure, we have a responsibility to our citizens to make sure the stories are correct. And with what's coming, if we do not do that, it's gonna make these are all volunteers, as you well know. And, that's not fun to sit on the council when it's very, very controversial. And I'm looking now at Linda Chambers and Mike Dedew and Don Ware, who've been here through a lot of turmoil. So, again, I think the council's on the right track with that.
Other comments? Don't forget name and address.
Name and address.
For the record.
Do that.
I'm Jack Walsman, 405 Spalding Avenue. Just a quick observation. You seem to be using the computer and monitoring a lot more in these meetings. Is it possible to have a monitor here so that the peanut gallery can keep track of what you're talking about?
The folks are always welcome to move the chair. Unfortunately, our budget, the council has tried to keep it limited.
We might be able to tilt it a little more so that we can still see it and you can see it.
Yeah, because we can't.
Yeah, it's hard to see. I know.
Can't see, unless you don't want us to.
Welcome to move your chair.
And the other thing, do you have an explanation of your intention of ad hoc? What that actually means?
So there
ad hoc committee.
Okay, yeah, I will actually.
I'm a simple man.
When you're done, I'll answer that, Jack.
I'm done.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Jack. So there are, if I can, I'll just directly answer that question now. So I think that's good clarification. So there are two kinds of committees that are formed, that council can form by the city code. One is an actual subcommittee of council, where council says we're going to actually we shall form a subcommittee. For example, council, the last subcommittee that I recall, it was about 8 years ago that was formed, was for, we had a marijuana proposal for downtown, and council formed a formal subcommittee and approved those members. The difference between that, the subcommittee has to have an actual agenda, and they have to have actual reported minutes. An ad hoc committee is something that the city administrator's seat can deem it so. And basically, the ad hoc committee then is picked from, it could be council members, it could be citizens, it could be whatever. And then that council, the purpose of an ad hoc committee is to take a very specific topic, and they're helping the city administrator formulate a plan that then brings that back to the city council for council to say, that's a good idea, or no, it's junk, we don't like it. So that's how that works. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Thank you for that question. I meant to mention that earlier, so thanks, Jeff.
All right. Any other public comments? Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. I can never resist. Go for it, Natalie.
Name and address for the record.
Natalie Ray, from the Bramble House, 209 Templeton Street. And I'm here to speak to you as a foodie person, because I love food, love feeding people. These people, I'm the newest one on the board. Well, Patrick and I are the newest one on the CFA board. And I just want to talk to you about them just briefly, because I think the attitude about some of these people might be, oh, they're just a bunch of old hippies, and don't you get that, right? Just a bunch of old hippies. But these people actually, if there's any time where we may be facing a food scarcity, there's a years of wealth of information, and they are, I've worked with them for 2 years, the most wonderful people that really love Brownsville. They want to make sure that everyone can take advantage of the knowledge that they have. There's never a dumb question when it comes to planting. They share the plants they have with other people. They're not in it to make a huge buck, and they just want to see Brownsville be more self-sufficient and healthier. And I just really hope you guys can really appreciate them and all the work they do, because they're all volunteers too, and they spend countless hundreds of hours at the garden and at the market, and trying to help people learn how to grow food. And I really appreciate them, and I hope you guys do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just for the record, in response, we do, I think I can speak for everybody, we do value the CFA, the community garden. I've thought about what you said about the importance of you as a resource and the community garden, even in a time of food shortage. And the farmer's market is great, and there's no lack of support here for that. It's just, just to clarify, it's finding, the most suitable, solution and location and all that, but it is valued, just to be clear.
Well, I guess I'm just a ditto then. I'm Nan Van Sant, 213 East Bishop Way, former city councilor, so I know what it's like to get slammed in the paper sometimes, or not necessarily slammed, but you have your words twisted. But my words get twisted often, even by my husband. But so anyway, so number one, I wanted to support a local paper because they are very few and far between. I did publicity for Stand By Me one year, and I was calling all these different papers. I thought they were all different, but they're all basically one paper in our nation right now, and there's a few big people. So it's incredibly important that we keep a local paper alive, and it's really exciting to go to the Brownsville Library and see 100 years worth of old papers. We've had many editors who have made many mistakes over the years. And anyway, so anything we can do to support them, and I just love the consensus you came to, that you will do the minutes and all that, and speak up when you are misquoted. And then the second thing was the Kayapui Food Alliance. As part of emergency preparedness, I think we've all seen the baby shortage, we see what crop damage is going on, climate change, whatever you want to call it, going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. It's very important that we have food sovereignty and know how to, grow. And I'm really excited to hear Sherry Lemhouse talking about canning and stuff like that and teaching, because part of emergency preparedness is knowing how to feed ourselves. We can't depend on big government to take care of us all the time. So I really like that you support the what Dave just said about the Kayapui Food Alliance and the farmers market. It's really exciting. I invite you all to go down there to see all the plants that are being sold, practically given away, saying, please grow this for your kids, or, and just the camaraderie down there, people selling bread, whatever, and sharing ideas about, homemade soaps, whatever. It's important knowledge, and, people don't get it nowadays. They're sitting home watching their phone, so it's really important to get out and get that knowledge that's going by the wayside.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Feel free.
I'm the FNG, because you had a question about the urgency of it.
Don't forget your name and address for the record.
Patrick Starnes on Putman, 122 Putman, on the corner of Calapooya and Putman. You asked about the urgency, and I just wanted to address that. And also I wanted to recommend that if anyone has concerns about us being at Kirks Ferry Park, that they be a part of that committee, because we really want the squeaky wheel to be heard, and so we can address it immediately. Because if there is ill will about it, we do have to start that process again. We just moved last year, so if we have to start moving again, we need to know that ASAP. So hopefully, if somebody has concerns, that we hear them immediately and address them quickly, so we can have a good season and not have to spend our time looking for a new location. So I'd like to really build the goodwill with the city.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a comment here. I think I have to at this point. So, the city has done a lot for a lot because we love everyone, right? So the city has entered into agreements with almost all of our nonprofits. The CFA is certainly no exception, actually one of the big three, I would say, in terms of what the city has done for the CFA. When Elizabeth Coleman and I sat down with Kathleen Swayze and Steve Brenner, we said this was a year-to-year issue and that it was a transition. The CFA's always been on private ground. Fortunately, they've always had an opportunity to be on private ground. So when they made the transition to the park, council was in the aware of it being because we had a committee then too. I think Councilor Thompson, Councilor Craven, and Councilor Nadeau, if my memory serves me correctly, were on that committee. And the discussion from the committee and the recommendation to council was very simply, it was going to be year to year on an as-is basis. So I really, as I read your minutes on April 11th, because many of you, golly, we've done everything together over the years, whether it be Carriage Me Back or whatever it's been. Steve was on council, Nan was on council. You've all been a part of the community, and clearly, council has done a lot of things. So I just want to make sure that the board, now that you're all here, knows that. I really was going to come to one of your meetings and say that, but Councilor Hanson had visited with me and said that he had an opportunity to talk to Kathleen about some of that information. But I just want to make sure that's straight. So that was how this thing on set, when Kathleen came to me in October, when they were gonna move, her and I jumped into my personal vehicle and we toured 8 spots. And we looked at all 8 and we said, okay, here they are, and then she took those back to the board. So this has never, ever, I have been on, first of all, I was the one, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but I'm just showing the city's support because I don't want it to be misrepresented. I was the one who went to the school board years ago to get the community garden in tow with Kathleen Swayze and Steve Brenner, with the support of this council and the support of the school board. And the city also went one further and went on record for all the years of that agreement to, if it got returned back, that we would actually pay for the ground to be turned up. So I don't want to be misrepresented that there is any ill will between any of the city's nonprofits. But I also think that it's vitally important, as the city council is moving through some very tough times also, not only with inflation and the state of the economy and all the things. Construction costs went up 15.5%. We're trying to do things for the community like the rec center. Everybody screams that we don't do enough for the youth. Au contraire, mon frere, we've got a 26-acre park, unbelievable rec center, and the programming at the library. Name a small town our size that does all that. So I'm not trying to castigate anyone. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus like Nan just did to Steve. I'm not trying to do any of that. And those bus marks, man, he's really smarting back there. But I just really want to make sure that we really accentuate the positive things that we're doing together.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, over the last, really honestly, almost 10 years, we have had so many contentious things, and the bottom line is the heart of, I think, personally, every person that's sitting in this room right now, because I know all of you extremely personally, which is weird for me, as you all know. I've talked to all of you about that. I know each and every one of you have a heart for this community that's unmatched, and we all want what's great for this town. And we all have provided that through hours, countless hours of volunteer service. Now I'm looking at Elizabeth, I'm looking at Tammy, I'm looking at Carl, and all the hours that these people put in to make sure that their job gets done at a high level that we don't pay for because they don't ask to be paid. Myself, the same thing. I did, we all do this for our community. So I just want to say that it is never with any malice or disrespect either way. So I hope that with that as our new understanding, that we can move forward from that place. I think that the communities that get tossed in these turbulent times and start castigating each other and aiming comments, that is not serving our greater purpose. And just like when capital improvements happen to walk toe over toe, we should really try to do that with each other. And I just hope that we can do that in the future and maybe with this ad hoc committee. So I feel like I had to say that, so I appreciate the
Here, here.
possibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else before we close the public comment section of the meeting?
That's a good closer.
That's a good closer, okay. Council comments and questions. I know, Mayor Ware, you had something you would like to say.
I have something I want to say.
Okay.
Yes, I thought I wasn't gonna be here tonight, but here I am, and I asked our council president to run the meeting, and decided when I realized I was gonna be here, to ask him to go ahead and do it, so I could experience it. The other thing I wanted to do is to offer any of the other council members, if you'd like to run a meeting sometime between now and the time my term ends, because I'm not running again, let me know, and we'd be happy to have you run the meeting. I think it's a good experience, and I'd like to offer that. So anyone else who'd like to do it, let me know, and we'll agree to a time. Thank you. I'm done.
You done? Okay, are there any other comments from the council?
I have one.
Okay.
Another little thing we had in our packet from the Oregon Department of Transportation. You have only 1 year left to get your ID required for air travel. Because after May 3rd, 2023, your driver's license is not going to get you on an airplane. You're going to have to get either a passport or another ID. Just, I think that's important.
Important clarification, because there is a misconception that you have to have the real ID to travel. You can use a passport.
Right.
And many
Yes.
people are more comfortable doing that
Yes.
than some of the technology involved with the real ID.
That's why I said
anyway.
passport
So just,
or
yes.
your real ID.
Yeah. Any other things? Yes?
I have
Councilman.
one last comment. Council, I would like to thank friends and citizens of the community. They're taking their time and coming down to express their views.
Yes.
That makes me a better counselor. Instead of my own views now, I have a group view.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, and thank you for taking time out of your day to come down and
Yeah.
express your views. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I would definitely echo that, because I would much rather have an audience and engage with the public than just have us up here conducting business and nobody out there. I have two things that I want to say. In closing, I wanted to draw everyone's attention, if you've not had an opportunity to read the letter from Mike Cockey, who
Thank
is
you.
the
I was
council
gonna say
president in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Our relationship with LCSO is obviously, we've discussed that a lot, and the subject of discretion has come up, and we've talked about that. And so if you've not read that, I would really encourage you to
It's
read that. I
very
think
good.
it's very insightful.
Yes.
And I appreciated his perspective. The other thing I was going to, should have done it under council report, I was gonna save it for council comments. But Councilor Thompson and Administrative Assistant Morrow and myself attended the League of Oregon Cities Region 4 meeting in Harrisburg a couple weeks ago. I have some comments on that, but I'm gonna hold those till next month unless, if you guys are okay with that.
Please, yeah.
Tammy, are you okay with that? And then give you some time to think about it in case you have things to add. And we'll do a little report on that next month, if that's okay, in the interest of getting us out at a decent time tonight.
Really?
So, any other council comments? We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention?
No.